The New York Mets beat the Atlanta Braves for the first time in 6 chances, winning 7-3 in a game that wasn't as close as that score. Let's talk about it.
This is the Braves Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to the Braves Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. That is Jake Mastroianni, host of Locked On Braves. Catch him on social media at Shortstop Ball. He's loving the Nick Allen era right now in Atlanta. And Jake, I want to talk about this 7-3 loss from Atlanta to the New York Mets. As I said in the open, first time the Mets have beat the Braves this season in the 6th game between the two teams. But the whole story in this one was Didier Fuentes in the 4th inning. He ends up getting knocked out of the inning early. Aaron Bummer comes in and finishes up that inning, but he gets tagged with 8 hits and 6 runs in 3 1/3 innings. No walks to 1 strikeout. And it looked to me like a lot of the damage against Fuentes was being done off of his fastball. And it, which is supposed to be one of his better pitches. And it really felt like he just struggled to bring it down in the zone. They wanted him to throw it down, and he just didn't really feel comfortable doing it. And big 4th inning for New York there.
Yeah, that 4th inning, unfortunately, in the past 2 nights, been a rough one for Braves starting pitching, but it's not a good performance. But I mean, he's a 20-year-old kid that has less than 30 innings above AA, and you're throwing him into, the major leagues, into a hostile environment in New York, at a situation where you need every game you can. So, yeah, I mean, I hate to put too much on the kid because a lot's being asked of him. And I said this when it was called up. I was a little surprised, shocked by it. And it's not that I don't think he can't be a good pitcher. Obviously, I believe he has the stuff, but he's 20 years old and he barely has any innings under his belt. And some people say, okay, well, Schwellenbach didn't either. Schwellenbach's 5 years older than Didier Fuentes. And I know Schwellenbach didn't have a ton of pitching because of injuries and not pitching all the time in college, but there's a big maturity difference there. And it's just, he's not there yet. And that doesn't mean that he won't eventually be good. My kind of hope with it is you get his feet wet here. Maybe he becomes a part of the bullpen later in the season, because I think that you plays up in that role. Obviously long-term, he's a starter, but it just wasn't a 15% called strike plus whiff rate is pretty bad. So just not a good outing for him in general. You talk about the 4-seamer that's supposed to be kind of his pitch. They really wanted him to throw the curveball off of that. I think their hope is to throw that fastball up and that curveball off of it. But he only threw the curveball 8 times tonight, and he threw the 4-seamer 46 times. And I just don't know, even if that 4-seamer is that good, if it's good enough to not warrant mixing in those other pitches a little bit more. Even with the best metrics, and it averaged 17 inches of induced vertical break, which is a little bit above average. Major league hitters are going to figure that out. And so unfortunately, that 4th inning, and what really I think was frustrating, you give up the home run to Mauricio, and then you come back through the order again, and the bottom 3, 7, 8, 9, all get hits in a row in that 4th inning, and then turn it over to the top of the lineup for a 3rd time, where you were hoping, okay, maybe he gets through 5 innings and he only has to face the top of the order twice. And it just wasn't the case. So a long way to go for Fuentes. I doubt he's going to get another shot in the rotation. I don't know who else you go to, but I don't know how much longer you can continue running this kid out there, who, again, has great stuff. I think is going to be very good. You're just asking a lot out of him right now.
Yeah. And a quick peek at the schedule with the off days you have coming up. You could really only need a 5th starter once between now and the All-Star break. And that's, I think I figured out that was like July 5th with Baltimore in town. That's the only time you would need an additional starter. So you may see a move made after the game tonight. We may see a move made first thing in the morning where they send him down and just go with an extra reliever for now, simply because with the off days coming up, you can kind of make this work. To your point, I don't think he's bad, right? The stuff is there. He's just very raw and inexperienced with it. And this is this is not the season. This is not the offense where you can afford to let a kid learn on the job in Atlanta. You've done this before, but this has been the story for the Braves now for a decade, right? You just don't really have the runway for a lot of pitchers to learn on the job in Atlanta, with very few exceptions. In this case, Schoenbach was really the only exception you had recently, because AJ Smith-Shawver took 3 seasons to establish himself. Elder's been up and down. So that's kind of been frustrating there. I do think it's interesting that Aaron Bummer finally got into a game for the first time. It's the second game in the last 10 days for him. And he pitched 2 2/3 scoreless innings. Like, he wasn't bad. He did give up a couple balls there that allowed those inherited runners to score. One of them was a weak single up the middle. One was a sac fly to left. But, I mean, he didn't pitch badly. It's just one of those, we don't see him nearly often enough. And I do think it's nice at the end of the day, Atlanta got through this using only 3 pitchers, given your starter went 3 1/3. The fact that you only use 3, because the flip side is what happened in New York yesterday, where you use 6 or 7 relievers to get through a game.
Yeah, I mean, look, those are big innings by Aaron Bummer, but it's just a bit of a head scratcher that a guy that might be one of your better relievers, you use him in a weird situation where he's basically just your bulk guy. And I think it's just the state of where the bullpen was. You had to use some guys the day before, like you said, and he's somebody that can give you length, but now he's probably done for another week. I mean, we'll see what happens. I talked about it yesterday. It almost seems like Dylan Dodd has kind of leapfrogged him as that lefty at the end of ball games, and that Bummer's just kind of become your bulk guy, which is kind of crazy, because the stuff that he has, and when he's on, and I know he has a lot of bad luck in there, but when he's on, I think he's one of your better relievers. So just some weird usage here for Aaron Bummer. But those are big innings. Certainly helps your bullpen state for the finale.
Yeah. And Austin Cox, I thought was fine. There's nothing special really there. It was not bad, which is, I think, the most you can ask for. The big thing here is just at the end of the day, you used 3 pitchers. You got out of it. You survived. There is a lot of conversation, I think, to be had, though, about the offense and their inability to make things happen today. We'll do that next, right here on the Braves Postcast. Baseball can be an expensive sport as a fan. There's 81 home games a year. There's like 17 different streaming apps. The merch you want to get, things like that. And so if you're trying to manage the spending that you've made on baseball, Monarch Money is the place to do that. You can track all your purchases, plan for a big purchase, grow your savings, whatever you want to do, because Monarch Money is like having your own personal CFO to give you full visibility and control over your finances. Because Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, your spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. And today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Rougiet. You've probably tried some of those other medicines that are out there for male performance issues. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Ready. Because Rougiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. It gets your brain excited. Unlike the usual pills that take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes, and effects can last up to 36 hours. So you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Head to Rougiet.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB to get 15% off today. That's Rougiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnMLB. Use promo code LockedOnMLB for 15% off. And individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website for full safety information. All right, Jake. I'm Rougiet ready to talk about this offense a little bit. The offense, 6 hits for Atlanta, the home run from Drake Baldwin. Other than that, 5 singles. They do score 2 runs in the 9th. Shout out to Ronald for driving some guys in there. But it just felt like the last 2 games, it almost feels like because Ronald's had some quiet games. Obviously, he had the 2 runs. He's walked twice in both games, but it's his first hit of the series of games 2 and 3. Because Ronald's had a quiet game, the offense has had a quiet game. I know that's not exactly scientific here, but it feels like that's the situation. Is it legitimately just you need Ronald to hit for the offense to work at this point?
I mean, that can't be it. It can't just be Ronald. And we saw that when he first came back and was on fire, but the rest of the team wasn't doing anything. And so they were still losing. Obviously, when Ronald's getting on base, and now we're starting to see the stolen base come back into play, it makes this a much better offense, but he's got to have some help. But certainly Ronald is the one that takes this offense to another level. When he's getting those home runs, when he's getting those extra base hits, it's great. He's taking his walks in this series, but he's also struck out a lot. I mean, he reached base 3 times in this game. And again, we're not blaming Ronald for anything here. But there is a lot on him to get this offense going. So yeah, I mean, it can't just be him. It's got to be more complete. Matt Olson's doing his thing right now, and he's been great, but you got to have more help up and down the order. But certainly Ronald, he's that table setter. It's why you continue to put him in the leadoff spot. I know we've talked about it. He might be better fit for the 2 or the 3 hole, but you continue to put him in that leadoff spot because he's supposed to set up the guys behind him. And those are the guys that are supposed to be doing the damage and knocking him in.
Yeah. And I do think it is telling that in the last Clay Holmes start, the Mets walked 9 guys, 5 of them come around to score. In this one, 7 total walks by the Mets, and 1 of those guys comes around to score, being an Ozzie in the 9th inning. So I do think that is the rest of the lineup there contributing. I wrote about this recently on the newsletter. You talked about this on the pod, but a couple people in the chat have asked in and around the Rougiet jokes. Michael Harris, he robs a home run from Francisco Lindor, so we love to see that. He also, you and I checked before we hit live here, he grounds out 4 times in this game and sees a grand total of 8 pitches. I know that's not the biggest problem with the Atlanta Braves. It's not. But at this point, how close are we to the point of you have to do something? Because I'll let you guess who has a lower OPS right now, Michael Harris or Nick Allen.
Yeah, I mean, you're setting it up. So I'm gonna assume that Michael Harris has the lowest OPS at the moment. But look, at what point? I think we're at that point. It's just who else do you put out there? It's kind of the conversation we've had. It's what I talked about on the pod the other day. I think we're at that point. I mean, you're nearly halfway through the season, and he is statistically one of the worst hitters in all of baseball. From qualified regular players, he is one of the worst hitters in all of baseball. So I think we're at that point where something has to happen. It's just, what are the alternatives? Do you feel comfortable putting Eli White out there every day? Do you feel comfortable in putting Carlos Rodriguez up here every day, who has a 50 ISO right now at AAA? I mean, who are you going to replace him with? Ronald can't play out there. Profar, when he comes back, can't play out there. Verdugo's definitely not playing out there. I mean, it's just, I don't think anybody really wants to see Jared Kelenic back up right now. No. So the options just aren't great. And it's unfortunate, but you're just going to have to see Michael continue to struggle through this. And look, we all know what he needs to do. And we all know that the approach needs to change. The pitch recognition needs to change. It's on Michael. Can he get this done? Can he get it done in the middle of a season? And it almost just feels like he needs a break. Like he either needs to be sent down just for a little while or get a couple of days off, maybe to just get a reset or something. I mean, All-Star break coming up. Maybe that, I don't know, the Braves can wait that long, but it just feels like he needs something to kind of reset him, because he's just continuing to try to fix this on the fly. And I just don't know how possible that is for him. But again, I think we're at the point where if there were any, semi-close alternative options, I think you have to go for it. I don't think there are.
Yeah. It feels like the best case scenario, I think, is when Jurickson Profar comes back and you can theoretically play him every day in left. Maybe that's something where they feel comfortable throwing Eli White into center field and they either give Harris some time off or they make him the corresponding move for Profar. I don't think it's going to happen right now. And I think that's the conclusion that I came to when I wrote that newsletter piece the other day as well, was you can't do it now, but maybe when Profar comes back, you can do it with the thought process of between the time before the All-Star break and then the All-Star break, you've got a couple weeks where he could take some time off and just clear his head, get some time in Gwinnett, and maybe come back. But it's definitely the point of you've got to do something. I mean, Paul's in the strike zone. He's hitting like 295 when he swings in the strike zone. He just chases 40% of the time, and that's obviously the big issue here. And then when he does make contact, like today, it's in the ground. So
yeah, that's the problem too. And that's what I talked about in the podcast. He's chasing a lot, which he's always done.
Yeah.
But now he's making a lot of contact with those pitches out of the zone, and it's weak contact because they are pitches out of the zone. And it's just, you can't get by on that. Maybe he got by on it. Maybe he was a little unlucky, or maybe he was a little lucky with that in his first 2 years, but now pitchers have adjusted to him and they know I can just throw in pitches outside of the zone. He's going to make that weak contact, and he's got to adjust back to that.
Yeah. All right. So the finale tomorrow, Grant Holmes versus Griffin Canning. This is another finale that's at night, 7:10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. And then after that, Atlanta has a game in Atlanta on Friday night, which is always frustrating. They don't get to leave early from New York. Again, Grant Holmes versus Griffin Canning. Are we going with former Brave Griffin Canning when we talk about this game? Because he technically was here for a cup of coffee. I've already exchanged the jersey. I have to get the tattoo covered up, but I've exchanged the jersey already. Do we call him former Brave Griffin Canning or not?
Yeah, I think he definitely is. I saw it in the chat section earlier, but I don't remember who it was to give credit, but definitely a 15 strikeout game incoming for Griffin Canning tomorrow night.
The revenge game. You didn't non-tender me. This is what happens. So we will be back to break down that game tomorrow, that finale. Hopefully Atlanta, we're talking about a series win for Atlanta and not a series split. Again, Grant Holmes on the mound. You feel pretty good about how good he's been recently at minimizing some of the hard contact, minus the egregious home runs that seem to plague him a little bit. But again, 7-3 victory for the Mets over the Braves. Do us a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. Some kind words would be great. Listen, folks, it's my birthday. I would love some kind words from you guys. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to both Locked On Braves and Locked On Sports Atlanta. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live to talk about everything from tonight's NBA draft, the Hawks made a trade, to Braves, to Falcons, to everything else, as well as getting every episode from Jake. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Lindsay Crosby. This has been the Braves Postcast.